This is a test. I'm just going to say, oh, okay, you can. Perfect. Okay, so if I start singing now, you have no choice but to listen. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. Hopefully you can't hear the dryer going in the background. Everything's good. Excellent. Okay. So we're at 12:15. So I guess we will get a little bit started. If hopefully everybody was able to go and see the repo. If not, no big deal. I just reposted it again in the chat. This is supposed to be a fun exercise with some learning to it. So no big deal if you're like overwhelmed. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing with this GitHub repo. It's perfectly fine. Just post some messages in the chat. We'll help you out. And hopefully everybody learns something. So I will start sharing my screen and we will get started. Awesome start with a word fumble. Okay, so welcome to the talk. So this would be practicing architecture by analyzing a day in my Spotify life. I am Andrew Briggs. Hi, I am a technical lead with RBC. I have been at RBC for about 4 years now. I lead one of the squads, and most of my experience is actually in the mainframe area with COBOL. Super exciting. We won't get into that now. If you do have questions about that, I'm more than happy to answer it, but I know a lot of people think it's boring, even though I think it's exciting and still has its uses. But today, what we're hoping to dip into a little bit is getting everybody started and getting their minds flowing with software architecture like we do at RBC. So we hope that at least some nuggets of information are taken away from this. I'm not sure how wise I am, but maybe there's 1 or 2 things you can learn from my mistakes. The first thing I'd like to bring up is a lot of people in school have to make presentations similar to this one and don't particularly like doing it. I'd like to say I'm a person that would always volunteer because the person that creates the presentation gets to choose what goes in it. So I realize we don't have a lot of time together, so let's get started and we will stick to what's most important. So the band NSYNC was created in Florida in the year 1995. They are pictured here, not particularly knowing what to do with their hands. You might recognize the handsome man on the right with the frosted tips and gold chain. That is Justin Timberlake. So why would this particular piece of information be in our presentation? I would refer you to the nugget of wisdom I just shared. The person that creates the presentation gets to choose what goes in it, and I got to create the presentation. So what we're going to do is talk about a bit about front-end, back-end architecture, because a lot like NSYNC, there's a front-end and a back-end, and it's beneficial to separate out those concerns. So the front end would be the presentation layer where we have users interacting, seeing, requesting things to be done. And some examples of the web frameworks you can use for this are Angular, React, and Vue, and mobile. So like Android and iOS, and if any of you are old enough, BlackBerry. I'm not sure anybody still has that. Of course, Justin Timberlake would also be a front-end presentation layer. We also have the back-end, which is also a data access layer. This is where things would, like user requests would be handled so that we don't have to particularly take care of it in a web page. And this would be done for things like handling updates to databases or any kind of interaction with databases. And this really helps to make sure that you're much more secure and that all of your application isn't actually on your client's computer. This, of course, also leads into InSync's manager. So Justin Timberlake himself wouldn't say be able to read contracts or create a scheduling tour. To be fair, I actually didn't fact check that. He is pretty multi-talented in what he can do, so maybe he can do all that. But most bands would not. They would have a manager that would take care of most of that thing for him or for them, and that's really what a backend does. The other thing is that between the front end and back end, much like Justin Timberlake and their manager, they would have a contract. So once they've established what things should be present, what should happen, then they're both okay to go off and do their separate things. This becomes fairly important with development because it makes things much easier when teams can agree on something, then go off and work on things separately. And then once they bring them together, everything should work. So that leads into a basic application. So if we did not have that separation, it would just be one application, and it would go down to our database, and the user just would interact with the one application. This is fairly simple. I'd like to state up front, even though it's called a basic app, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. If this fits your use case, then everything is perfectly fine. Now, if you want to start expanding and adding additional features and including more security, that's when you would start to consider separating things out. But a lot of what we do, like proof of concepts and stuff, we'll just start basic because really that's all you need to do. So what we're going to do is try and expand on that, where we separate our app out so that the user is only interacting with the front end. The front end and the back end will handle things for us. So this is what we've been discussing a little bit in the previous slides. Oh, I should also specify I cannot see Hopin right now, so if there are questions, I will get to them later, or hopefully one of my great colleagues will help out. So now that we have this app separated out a bit, how can we start taking advantage of this? So a large corporation like RBC, Spotify, those were the first two that came to mind for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe they're just the two that are on the slide right now. They have to support multiple platforms and support multiple different kinds of data. And so what ends up happening is this sort of architecture where we start to get fairly complex, but if you look deep down, it's really just the front end and back end architecture. So we still have that same back end there, but it's actually just feeding multiple front ends. So we have a web app and a mobile app, and they, as long as they share that same contract with the back end and follow it, everything's perfectly fine. We can make one change on a back end and it will affect both places. Similarly, if somebody for some reason has both Spotify and Apple Music and maybe another one, I'm not sure why you need that many music streaming services, but who am I to judge? The front end doesn't particularly care that you have more than one. The back end will take care of scooping all of that up, handling it for you, and then just displaying it to the front end. This just makes things a lot easier. We can have numerous teams working on numerous different applications, and everything just comes together with some harmony is the hope. Sometimes things don't go as planned, but when does everything go as planned? So what are some considerations? So when you're deciding when something would go in a front end and back end, much like everything, I don't want to be super frustrating, but it always depends. There's never a clear-cut answer, and if somebody tells you that, then they haven't written enough code and worked on enough applications, because there's always an exception. But some of the things to consider is would logic have to be duplicated? So if all of your front ends are going to have to do the exact same manipulation to the data coming back, that's probably a good indicator that you're going to want that into your back end. And similarly, what effect would a change have? So if you all of a sudden are starting to support Apple Music and Spotify, would you have to change your front ends? Probably not. That would be something that goes in the back end. Whereas if you want to add like a very quick filter to just only display a couple things, you might just want to do that on the front end. Again, it depends on what you're doing. And this is more about encouraging the thought process as to giving an absolute. Another consideration is, what is the best tool for your use case? So in this workshop, we're actually using TypeScript with Angular and NestJs. This is for ease of use and basically getting things up and running. But maybe you want a Java backend. Maybe your WhatsApp or Discord, and you want to be able to support millions of users sending messages, in which case you would use like Erlang or Elixir for your backend. So separating out the front end and back end really gives you a lot more flexibility in choosing the tool that you'd like. The other thing is, what are the performance and network impacts? Like I mentioned with like Erlang and Elixir, for Spotify and WhatsApp, that's really the best choice for their performance. However, for apps that we use, where we have like if I'm doing a personal project and I'm going to have 10 people, it doesn't particularly matter what I use on my backend. So maybe I'll just make something that it's easiest to program in. So with that all said, I could keep talking, but I'm sure that I've probably started boring everybody. So we can actually start looking at some code. I'll just give an introduction of the repo, and hopefully we can get going. Actually, I should just double check that everything's good. Everybody's still here. Perfect. I seem to have not crashed, so that's excellent. Now, the basis of the app we're going to be working on today, I have used technology called NX to set up a basic repo that has a front end, a back end, and a contract between the two. So our contract is that we have an array of song plays being sent between the two. So the front end will request from the back end, and the back end should send that to them. Now, the back end is set up so that it has an endpoint. It has an endpoint that will return essentially what is a hard-coded array from my Spotify data. So I chose a day, January 24th, 25th. It looks like I was up late that night. That's late for me. So I do not know what I was doing this day. If anybody can figure that out based on this playlist, please let me know. Maybe I was playing ping pong or celebrating not being in a pandemic prior to it happening. So we have that back end, and then we have a very basic front end setup to this. Sorry, I also would like to point out this is called a service, but it is an Angular service that will call the backend. This actually isn't our backend service. So all it does is it goes, pulls from that songs endpoint that we've created in the backend and puts it in this songs variable. We then have it going through, the service is injected into the component and pulled in, and it is displayed on the HTML. So I went through that really quickly. It doesn't matter if you understood everything, that's great. If not, don't worry, that's what this workshop's for, learning how these things are coming together, poking around, making mistakes. Hey, download it, break it, do whatever you want. Everybody knows that me making mistakes is the way I learn best. So I would encourage you all to do the same. Now, the other thing is I've written a nice little README that I hope will help everybody. So essentially, once you've gone in and downloaded the repo, you have you go to the root folder and you can run the npm run start front end if I could type. And then in a separate tab, you'll have to do the exact same thing and run the back end. And that will bring up both of our applications. And there are also these handy little links in there so that you can give it a shot. And as we can see, when we hit the songs endpoint, we are able to get that data coming through. And when we are able to hit the front end endpoint, we have my super amazing music taste web page. Unfortunately, my taste did not come through in visual design, as you will notice. If throughout this workshop you're like, damn, Andrew, this is ugly, I need to fix this, feel free. You are messing with the front end, so I'd consider that a win because we're messing with the front end architecture without affecting the back end. The other thing is there are some challenges that I've added. You don't have to follow these if you don't want. If you want to go through and just start messing around and learning, that's perfectly fine. But there are some back-end challenges and front-end challenges. Just some nice little fun things to do. Just basically simply to help build up your skills, and all of the answers aren't in the README, so it will require some Googling, but feel free to ask questions if you need any help. And the other little tidbit is some people might be wondering how I got my Spotify data, and that would be in the 5th backend challenge. It will take a while, but Spotify did respond within a week, and I was able to download all of my data. So in theory, with this workshop, what you could do is develop something with my data, and once yours is ready to go, you could actually just paste yours in instead of mine, and your app should completely work the same. That would, again, demonstrate the back-end front-end architecture. You're changing the back end. The front end doesn't care, so you're good to go. That would bring my talking to a close. We can give my voice a bit of a rest. We have a few of my colleagues on hand as well to help out. So I'll just call out Emily and Murthy and Chris. They are super fantastic and great. I super appreciate that they are here to help me out. Oh, we also have Alex too. Okay. I have overwhelming support from some of the best minds at RBC. And one thing I should also mention is Alex will be presenting this afternoon at about Rxjs, and I got a sneak peek and it was fantastic. So now that we're through that, feel free to poke away at the repo, poke away at the challenges, ask any questions in this chat that you need to. We'll also be around on Discord if needed. We'll definitely be dedicated until 1:15 to help out. Maybe I'll even try and program a couple of them myself throughout the next hour, just to demonstrate how I might do it, even though maybe I might have to cheat and Google a few things. There's no shame in that. Cool. Oh, the other thing, if anybody has already downloaded the GitHub repo and it was before about a half hour ago, I also updated the README. I pushed a new commit where it is my top songs of 2020. So if you need some ambience music or anything going on in the background, I have a weird taste in music, as you can probably already see based on the data. But you can go ahead and use that repo. And yes, I was actually listening to lo-fi music earlier this week while programming some things. For the database, we actually didn't end up using one. It's just a flat JSON file that's being pulled in to the Nest.js. Yeah. We initially were setting up a SQL Docker container, but thought that we were already pushing our luck with the technical challenges of Hopin, as well as trying to get GitHub repos to everybody. I also hope that my background can somewhat compete with Jeff's, but he really set a high bar. So, sorry, NestJS. So excellent question. So NestJS is a Node backend service framework. It's no problem if you are new to any of these technologies. Again, this is what this workshop is for. So I guess if you'd like to keep paying attention to me, you can. I will start going through what Angular is and what NestJS is as a follow-up. If you're already good to go, feel free. It doesn't really matter. Because I might say some things that are basic to some and brand new to others. And to be honest, if you had asked me these questions 4 years ago, I would have absolutely no idea either. So you're just starting at the same place in your journey as I was. So Angular is a front-end JavaScript framework. It runs using TypeScript. And what happens is your TypeScript runs in conjunction with an Angular, an HTML template. So what you're actually able to do is, you might recognize this as normal HTML, except there are a couple things that are different. So what's going on here is it pulls from the getSongs function in the TypeScript file and returns an array. And what it does is, for each song in that array, I want you to go through and create a column and put in the artist, track name, end time, and milliseconds played. Essentially, what you can do is manipulate the data however you want in multiple places. I would recommend in the TypeScript file. No big deal. So what's great about this repo is it's in NX. I see you asked about React. If you want to spin up an NX app inside of, a React app inside of NX, no problem at all. You can do that. All you have to do is make sure that it connects to this back end, and that's perfectly fine. That's what's great about this architecture. Everybody can go ahead and make whatever front end they want and reuse the back end. Or if you want to change out the back end, feel free. I will also just go ahead and mention what Nest is also a Node.js framework that uses TypeScript. And it uses something, oh crap, what are these called? Annotations. So it uses annotations just to automatically connect and create various REST endpoints. I could keep going deep down, but REST is essentially just a protocol or a service architecture paradigm. And this is taking advantage of one of the, so we have get, update, delete, and create, our classic CRUD operations. And so we basically have those coming through for our REST APIs as well. There are numerous articles that will do far better explanations than I will on the internet. So hopefully a little bit of Googling will help out. But what I can do is I'll just pick one of the challenges, and I can go ahead and create that as well. So what we can do is I'm going to go ahead and choose the second backend one, because this is the one that matters to me most, the fact that everybody knows that Kiss from a Rose by Seal is the greatest song of all time. So I'll try and add a greatest song of all time endpoint. Now, what we have is, this is our app controller, which has the root. So this songs is our root. We can dig into the repo about how that's set, but that's not super important right now. So we'll just go ahead and create our endpoint. Since we're developers are lazy by nature, I'll just do a copy. Get greatest song. And this challenge was actually made super easy because it is just a hard-coded string. As I described, in general, you wouldn't hard code too many strings directly in the code. You would use like constants or environment variables, but it's a universal truth that this is the greatest song of all time, so I'm just going to break that rule. So what happened here is I've created a new get endpoint, and I've passed in a new path for it to follow. So we have the base get, and we've added a new path of greatest song of all time, and we're going to add in get Kiss from a Rose by Seal. Ooh, I should also describe what I just did there. So it's returning a string, but its TypeScript is typed, of course. So it's complaining that we are not returning a songs response type. So we actually have to switch it to be returning a string. And I don't code in front of large groups of people too much, so I really hope this works first time. Or else maybe they'll fire me. Well, I doubt that, but perfect. And so we already have a brand new endpoint that's returning Kiss from a Rose by Seal. Excellent. I'm going to count that as a win. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Yeah, if you could tell Jeff not to fire me, that'd be great. Cool. Is there any other questions? How does architecture relate to microservices? Microservices, oh, Murthy already got you. Perfect. Sina, so we can break down front end and back end into separate services. So a front end wouldn't really be a service. The back end would be a service, but yes, they would be two different applications, essentially giving a few different benefits, which we went over during the presentation. Essentially separation of concerns. We can reuse the backend services for multiple different front-end applications if we'd like. Your security can be taken care of on the back end, and among numerous different things. I believe the session was recorded. I wouldn't want to go through absolutely everything, but I'll see if I can also put the presentation out there, though it was more of a guideline for me to riff off of, as opposed to me to read. Yeah, I can get back to coding if everybody is interested in watching me. Elias, sorry, do you pronounce it Elias or Elias? I'm not sure. But if you have a specific challenge that you would like me to try, I actually thought up some of the challenges, but didn't actually try them myself. Oh, the syntax? Yeah, sure. I'll also put it along the side so that I can see chat as well. Yeah, TypeScript's a little bit weird because most C languages would put the typing ahead. This one goes ahead and does a colon and then puts the typing after. With so many front-end frameworks, are there generally major important ones and industry standard? Yeah, so the so I can't give too much of an opinion. because that's what it'll be. So it really depends on what you're doing. We've decided on using Angular at RBC for now, for at least our area, just because it gave us the support that we needed and the ability to interact with one of the third-party vendors that we were working with. So it's what got us spun up and working on things really quickly. Now, there's a few major ones, Angular, React, and Vue. From my understanding, so Angular might be a little less performant than the other ones, but it really depends on what you're doing, what your developers are comfortable doing, and as well as like the different platforms in general should be fine, because all web browsers, all web frameworks are actually compiled down to base JavaScript and HTML. So in the end, that's what will end up going out to clients. And so all anybody needs is a web browser to use them. But much like anything, Xbox versus PlayStation, there's always going to be people that have opinions. But I would just encourage everybody to keep an open mind and use what you're comfortable with and adjust if you need to. Yes, so there are certain areas of RBC that also use React. We like to keep an open mind, and if developers feel that a different tool is going to be beneficial, then that's what we use. Where are REST APIs used? So I'm not sure about the specificity of the question. Like at RBC or other major corporations, a lot of the time your different areas of the organization need very similar things. And so what you do is you set up one REST API that handles a single domain, say like cards. And then anybody that needs access to certain cards or anything like that would all be able to just call that single REST API to handle that. So what it means is we don't have numerous parts of the bank having to rewrite the same code over and over again. And there's just one central place. You can do many things, like security is better, your statistics on how many people are using these things just makes it super easy. How did I do the request for the greatest song of all time? You have to do the base endpoint as well. Songs. So I guess we can get into that a little bit. So what you have is a base endpoint. It could have been left empty, but for this, hopefully this will find it really quickly. Yes. So what we have in our backend is a main.ts where we set a global prefix for all REST APIs. And so how the endpoint address is built is the local host plus the port, which is 3333, plus the global prefix, / global prefix. And so that ends up being, I believe I put it in the README. So yes, that ends up being this HTTP localhost 3333 songs. So anytime you add a new endpoint onto it, it would be / and then endpoint name. The initial endpoint does not have that. It's just a base path to the root. And that's because there's nothing in the get annotation. So it just takes the base path. Hopefully that helped a little. A lot of times things make sense in my mind and then I say them out loud and yeah. So yes, this isn't Express. So all you have to do to create an endpoint is you create your function, new function, And we can forego the typing of TypeScript for now, I think. Unexpected empty, yeah. So return, this is my new function. So right now you have a, uh-oh, my screen's blurry, that's not good. I can paste the code into the chat as well. So what you do is, this would be your app controller. So in the apps backend source app controller, I'll get the copy relative path, I think it is. Add endpoints. So the controller is what determines the routes. And so what you have to do is you create a new function. So what I've done is created a new function. But that by itself won't actually do anything yet. What we have to do is it's these annotations that NestJs looks at and automatically generates the endpoints for you. So what I can annotate it is new function. So as soon as I add the annotation, yes, sorry, NestJs is a fantastic framework for taking care. So what happens is these annotations, we could actually dive deep into the, they're called decorators. Man, I've been calling them annotations this whole time. Is there any way to rewind the whole recording and go back and change it all? So what happens is these decorators so TypeScript is a transpiled language, so it transpiles into JavaScript. So what will happen is NestJs goes through transpiling and looking for decorators, and it will automatically go through and create the endpoints based on those decorators. Yes, you put a get decorator. Yes, on a function inside of the app controller. But not on the app controller itself. The app controller has the controller decorator, which tells NestJs that it is an app controller. And then, well, mine saved, so we'll double check to make sure that I didn't screw this up. Uh-oh. Cannot get songs new function. Uh-oh, accidentally almost swore there. New function, yes, okay, that worked. Perfect. Cool. REST API endpoints, so just to address the, so naming conventions for REST endpoints would not be hyphenated. It would use, I don't think, actually, Chris would probably be the best person, but I believe it's just yeah, camel case. Yeah, for the names. Do you think your university program made you career ready, or did you have to do more than what your university offered? I actually went to Mohawk College. To be honest, I think I learned way more on the job, and the best thing for me was messing around, making mistakes, and learning new things. Again, I'm somebody that learns from when things are going wrong. So I feel that was best. The other thing is keeping an open mind, learning and trying to find ways to do things, even if it's difficult. I can't tell you how long I worked at a company that I did not have access to most programming tools. So I ended up writing little scripts inside of Excel in VBA, just because that's what made my life easiest. And so it's like an ability to adapt, learn new tools, learn new things, and just get things done. The pros for setting a global prefix are being able to set like a base path for your REST API's domain. So like we have songs. What happens is if we had a backend that had to handle more things in like a playlist endpoint instead of songs, those would kind of be two separate domains, where the playlist might reference the songs, but it wouldn't actually be the songs itself. So having a global prefix would help to differentiate that kind of thing if we were deploying multiple backends. So what you have is a server where you put multiple apps. If you have no global prefix, those multiple apps would clash on the routes. Whereas if you have the global prefix, everything's totally cool. Multiple apps can spin up on one server, and they just all route to the proper place. Cool. Yeah. And if there are follow-up questions or like I just have insane ramblings, let me know. I have no problems clarifying things. Again, nobody's perfect, not even me. I'm just really, really close. I've been working as a developer. I just checked my watch to see how long I've been working as a developer. Oh, geez. What, like 15 years? Yeah, 15 years. And I started out on the mainframe. So I know like COBOL, that old language, and like a few scripting languages and JCL and all that. And so I was actually plucked from a mainframe group and brought over to work on Angular and Java. Also, good call out by Chris. Welcome to come over to the RBC Expo booths even after this workshop's over. More than welcome. Hopefully the repo is working out and everybody's messing around. I'm more than willing to just answer questions regardless. So let's see, how important is computer science for web development? I think it depends on what you do. The base knowledge really helps out and really makes sure that you are able to pick up the concepts a lot quicker. Having said that, if you're just a curious mind, I don't think that there's anything blocking you from becoming a web developer. The most of my learning has been done away from the classroom, just, again, messing around with things, tinkering, finding out how they work. What big changes have you seen in 15 years? Where do you see things going in 15 years? Biggest thing changing, I guess, processing power and RAM. I don't know if that's a great thing to say. No, the agile teams. So I came from places where it took months to deploy code. Now my code will be in production pretty much the next day. That is crazy to me to see that kind of transformation, especially at a major financial institution. And the fact that they're willing to give us the space to do what we want, have some fun, mess around, because they know that the organization is going to benefit from it, just because the more we know, the better decisions we can make. And so really the most thing I'm most impressed with, actually, I'm going to sound like an RBC shill right now, how much they put into IT. they realize how important it is. The IT budget has just ballooned, and they are full in on trying to get us everything we need to just make what we can to make RBC a success. Because a lot of the transformation that you've seen is based around IT and what we can do, because we switched to working from home, no problems. And that was just mind-blowing to me. Where I see things going in 15 years, personal opinion, I can't speak for RBC. I think you'd probably see a lot more remote working and remote teams after the pandemic, because I think a lot of older institutions that were kind of fighting these kinds of things, at this point, they're like, okay, we were forced to do this. It clearly works. So hopefully that'll happen. A lot of people seem to think that AI will take over coding. I'm skeptical. I could be proven wrong. I guess we'll find out. But I'm not too sure. What I'd like is software that'll clean my apartment for me. That would be really nice. Anyways, sorry. We'll continue on. How does one navigate the path from junior developer to intermediate developer to senior? That's a really interesting question that we've been thinking about quite a bit. So a lot, some of the path I've seen is out of school. How do I word this? Okay, so my path, I thought I knew absolutely nothing. And through the 15 years of my career, like I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the imposter syndrome. So I have had that until last year. So what I felt as a junior is I don't know anything. I really need to learn. And then what happened was I just kept doing my best, asking questions, trying to get things going. And then, yes, through that path, working well with others is one of the most important things. Working well with others, asking questions, that's what really brings people together. Also helping to lift up the people around you. So it's not just about you, it's also about your impact on others and helping them. That's what helps to make a great senior. And what I had and what happened with the imposter syndrome at senior was, oh, I don't know a lot of things, but I know enough that I can start figuring things out. And that's the mindset that really just starts to get you shooting off, where, yeah, you don't have all the answers, but you can figure it out. It's going to be fine. Again, that rambling went all over the place. What path do you suggest for someone trying to learn Angular from scratch? So the Angular Tour of Heroes was really good. They just on the Angular site. I would go ahead and just start with that. Start messing around. Look into industry standards, like what most organizations are using. So you're going to want to get like the Angular basics down. That's what I would recommend first. That's what's most important. And then start building on top of that knowledge. Because like React has Redux, and which is basically a state store, a mini database on the front end. It's just like a cache, like a temporary database. But Angular has something similar called NGRX. But what I would say is most important to understand is Rxjs Observables. And luckily, we actually have Alex doing a talk about that this afternoon. Hopefully, they'll be able to paste the time of that. What time is it at? 5, 6? But yes, so Rxjs is very important because, and I didn't want to get too deep into it because of that. Rxjs is what handles the asynchronous activity. So in our service, we don't know when the backend service is going to have a response because it's over HTTP. So what happens is we subscribe to the response. So this actually doesn't run in line. What happens is JavaScript will detect that there's an async behavior, put this in the stack, and then once the HTTP response comes back, then this set of code will get triggered. So this could happen in a second, 10 seconds, a minute, it doesn't matter. And then what happens in here gets triggered. Sorry, I'm at the bottom. I mean, songs that were listened to, if you looked at the data a little bit, milliseconds played is 1,530 seconds. That's 1.5 seconds. I clearly wasn't listening to this song on that day. So what I was looking for songs that were listened to is if it was less than 10,000 milliseconds played, I probably skipped the song. Whereas I was clearly really interested in listening to White Unicorn by Wolf Mother at that time because it went on for 304 seconds. Did we go? How deep did we go? Path, ventures, our DevOps pipeline. Yes, our pipeline team is amazing. Those guys have my absolute respect. And Murthy is here from the pipeline team. I can't say enough good things. Everybody here is amazing. I don't want to just single one of them out, but yeah. If there's remote work, wouldn't more work be done overseas? We still want to be on the same timelines, time zones. So what we're actually expanding in Montreal. I don't know how much I'm at liberty to say, so I'm not going to say too much. But yeah, we have technology operations in Toronto. We have recently, as early as like 2020, early 2020, we opened up a Montreal tech office. And so that's expanding right now. Sorry, how do we check if a song has been listened to? Hopefully what I said made sense. If it was less than 10 seconds, I figure I probably skipped that song. 5:30 to 6 for Rxjs with Alex. Yes, so Rxjs will be very important regardless of the front-end framework you do, because you're going to have to deal with the asynchronous activity everywhere. Thank you, Sarah, for posting the Tour of Heroes. Sarah also was on my team. Fantastic. I was super impressed. And you continue to help me even when you're not at RBC, so thank you. How did I get my Spotify data? Okay, so I actually put it in the README. So what I had to do is you have to sign in, and once you're signed into Spotify, this is the Canadian, I'm not sure which country you're in or which country your account's with, but you have an account privacy section, and you can actually, it'll take you through the steps on requesting your data. It won't be there right away. It'll take, they say up to 14 to like 30 days. I think mine arrived in like 5. And then at that point, I don't want to go too deep into my file system because I don't know what I have where, but there will be a file called Streaming History 0. And I just basically took a day from that file and pasted it in here. That file was absolutely huge. It contained like a full year's worth of playlist data. Now, having said that, if you're using Apple Music, I'm sure there's a way to do the exact same thing. And the benefit, if we could go back to the great architecture, the benefit of that is your front end doesn't care. All you have to do is paste your file into where we have it, and then have your app controller take care of putting in your Apple data, and as long as it follows that song play contract, then you're good to go and your front end doesn't care. Was that enough? Hopefully that was enough, Thomas. Yep, perfect. Also, if you use my repo to start and you create a wildly successful Spotify analysis app that other people can use, you don't have to give me or RBC any credit at all. Just tell them that you learned all this at CUSEC at a hackathon, and hopefully other people get interested and and be willing to come in and join us in these kinds of events. So you're not interested in other Canadian time zones, i.e. Calgary? I cannot speak to that. I don't know. We do have like branches and everything everywhere, but I'm not sure. I'm not important enough to know about technology centers too much. Will we be able to view this recording after? Yeah, hopefully they'll let me edit out all the edit out all my mistakes. That would be really nice. But yeah, from my understanding, this is recorded and you can watch it. What's the most fun project you've made? So I have a set of Philips Hue lights, and there is a REST API for the Philips Hue. And so when I was learning Angular, what I did was I grabbed that, I went and looked at that REST API, and I got my computer set up with being able to hit my Hue hub. And I created an Angular app that was able to go and turn lights on and off. And actually, I created an effect that would flash them really bright and then off again, like lightning. That actually really helped my Angular as well, because that was the kind of things we were doing at work, integrating with REST APIs. And so that gave me like a ground up way to practice what I was trying to do with work, as well as being able to do something fun that I could visually see something happening. That was really cool in my eyes. I think that's the most exciting thing I've worked on. I keep looking over because I'm looking at my Hue lights, by the way. I'm not just staring off into the distance. How do we use query params in NestJs? I can do this in 2 minutes, because all you got to do is @query. You just need the @query decoration, and then you'll have to have TypeScript import it from NestJS common, and then it should be able to add the ID. Come on, Andrew, you can do this in 2 seconds. Greatest song of all times, comma ID equals test. So Chris from a Rose seal test. So that's how I did it. And I'll go back to the code. Oh, yes, I can paste the code. And then, again, you just need to add the ID there. But yes, thank you, everybody, for joining. Like Melissa mentioned, there's a survey to take. Also, please come join us at the RBC Expo booths. We can answer more of your questions. Hopefully, I got through as many as possible. But yeah, I hope everybody learned, had fun. Feel free to keep hacking away at that repo if you'd like, learn new things, ask questions. In order to get to the booth, Melissa, would you be able to paste instructions on how they can get to our booths? Hopefully. Expo is on the left. Oh. Is this still recording? Okay, yeah. You hit the Expo button on the left. Yeah. Thanks for making me look dumb, Chris. Also, yeah, feel free to listen to that playlist. And if you want to sing any songs with me, you just let me know at the Expo booth. Spice Girls, I clearly listened to a lot of Spice Girls that day, so I can sing any of those songs. Thanks everybody for joining. Hey, yeah, I hope this was beneficial. I hope my crazy ramblings actually had some nuggets of wisdom in there. Yeah, so this was just from 12:15 to 1:15. And so now we'll just shift over to the expo. Yeah, this is recorded, so even though you missed it, you can just feel free to go and rewatch it. I'm not sure about how that's done yet, but it's fine. Yeah, you can add me on LinkedIn, feel free. Thank you very much. Everybody have a good day. Enjoy the rest of CUSEC.